Coming up on your favorite podcast, Ty and I are back for another edition of the PGA Preview pod. This time we go to TPC River Highlands, where the field is actually really good after a major, which usually doesn't happen. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll also dive a little bit back into the U.S. Open and figure out venues for future championships, what makes a good venue, that sort of thing. Plus, I got to talk to him about my golf game. It's coming alive, I think, but I need his counsel. So we're back on the therapeutic Davenport. Should work really well here for this week. Going to be a great podcast, so stick around. We'll talk a little of that. We'll talk a little KPMG Women's LPGA. Should be fantastic. Can't wait to get into all of that on the pod today with Ty. Hey! It's the Tim Anderson Podcast. I'm Tim. That's my buddy Ty on the other side. And Tyus, I'm so glad to see you, but I was a little worried I wasn't going to see you because you had a baseball game run late, and I maybe had the world's worst muscle spasm Charlie horse in the thigh quad area, and it was all I could do to crawl into my shower to get some heat on it about 35 minutes ago. I was a little scared for my life, I got to tell you, but I'm glad I'm here with you.
I'm worried about you. That's not the average thing, but there's an easy solution. You might just need to eat a banana or drink a bottle of water. It might not be a big deal, but I have not experienced that. You might want to check the old Googler on that.
I did do that, as a matter of fact. I checked the Google, and I got it down to two options. It's either just dehydration or it's Lou Gehrig's disease. So those are my two choices that we're kind of working through the checklist now on both of those, and we'll see which one comes up. But I'm going to guess it's the dehydration. The Google tends to give you the extremes, and it's good to know that that's my window. I'm anywhere from dehydration to Lou Gehrig's disease, which I don't know what that does for me.
Yeah, let's hope it's dehydration. I drink a bottle of water, see how you feel. See if it persists, but yeah, it's. I think that can be quite common for being dehydrated. So let's cross our fingers and hope it's that, because we need to podcast for a long, long time, my friend.
And the good news is I am one water. I'm a bottle of water in. I've caked some icy hot on there. So I'm playing with pain here, but I'm in. I'm in for the pod. This is going to be a great time. I look forward to chatting with you as I do every week. Sometimes twice a week during a major championship, but always good to get you back on the podcast as we are this week. You had some baseball duties that ran behind. Was it extra innings? What happened?
No, it went a little long because they can't start an inning after a certain time, but if that inning goes a long time, then we're kind of in the woods there. So we were a little late. And then I still had to make dinner, and I didn't factor in cool down time for dinner. So Dave Portnoy style burnt my face off. But I'm here. Like you said, I'm playing through pain. I wouldn't expect anything different from the two of us. We're all in all the time. So let's go.
I was expecting you to give me the umpires were checking the pitchers every 2 innings, and so the pitcher had to take his hat off and throw his glove at the umpire, take his belt buckle off, all that stuff like you saw Max Scherzer doing last night.
Well, there was, I'm not trying to get into conspiracies here, but there was an empty jar of spider tack in the garbage by the porta potty. So I wouldn't rule it out. There were some checks. No one was thrown out of the game. No one had to check the perspiration on their hair, but it went a little long, and you never know.
Were you checking spin rates for the little leaguers, the 10-year-olds? Man, there's a lot of spin on that two-seamer tonight. I don't know. It's
Oh yeah, coach's pitch. That's see.
Oh, see,
you can't put anything past the coaches.
No, everybody's trying to win here. Everybody's trying to get an edge. No different than golf, right? Although, when was the last time you saw baseball is like the one sport where nobody wants to play baseball. They're always looking for some way to cheat. There's a corked bat. There's steroids. There's spider tack. It's Gaylord Perry spitting on the ball. You got a million different. Nobody just wants to play by the rules in baseball. I'm trying to think of was there ever a golf equivalent where somebody showed up with a driver that didn't conform, or there was something inside the hollow face of the driver. Just something. Something off, right? You don't see. It's a gentleman's game with golf. That's why we don't see that.
I bet there is. I would venture to guess if they really busted open the books and took a look. I bet there's some cheating going on in all sports, and golf, not excluded from that. I don't know if baseball just has a little bit of a stigma that from the steroid era that they realized how much it hurt the game, and now they're trying to really crack down on it. Whereas the other sports just think if you're the commissioner of golf, if you're Jay Monahan and you're thinking, okay, if guys are cheating and I cannot ruffle too many feathers and the money's good and the ratings are good, do I really want to get into that and ruin these guys' and bring a bunch of questions to our game like baseball did? I mean, baseball's gone through a tough stretch of years, and it all kind of really started with PEDs. So I wouldn't rule it out that other sports there's the same type of things going on, because there's the same type of opportunity, and where there's that much money on the line, people are going to try to gain an edge. I don't think there's any question about that.
And it's interesting that golf, I would say that they're trying to police their game without anybody really cheating. Like nobody's violating the rules, and yet there's constant talk about the rules in golf. In fact, we talked about this a little bit on Sunday night, that the USGA and the R&A, they haven't even done this yet, but the PGA Tour players themselves decided to police themselves and eliminate green reading books starting next year. I'm a big fan of this move, and this one is, I feel like this is 100% Rory McIlroy driven. Like as the head of that players association of the tour, the players rep, I feel like he drove this 100% and got this done, because he's kind of an old school guy, and I think he hates all this stuff.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit on Sunday. I mean, it clearly shows the push that Rory McIlroy has, and probably the respect he has among not only his peers, but also the...
Ty's losing his signal here. Hopefully we can get him right back. Are you back here yet, Ty? I'll be still chatting. We'll get him back on the line. There he is. I lost you there for a minute, Tyus. You there?
Yep.
There he is.
I'm here.
Back.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you now. What did you say? Finish your thought, because you were cutting out there.
Yeah, I was just saying that I think that it really speaks volumes about Rory McIlroy's respect among his peers in the management of golf and kind of all the higher ups. Green reading books, it doesn't do anything for the fans, and if the players are calling for it to be abolished and it's slowing, I really think golf is such. It's not necessarily when the fans want it gets done, but when the players want it doesn't always get done. In this case, I give golf credit because they stepped up and something that really from a fan perspective I don't think makes a huge difference. I mean, it does, but I don't think that the average fan knows that it's going on or knows the effect of these green reading books. So kudos to PGA for stepping up and listening to the players, because really the players are the ones who know what makes the game better and what's going to speed up the game. And I think that ultimately, I could be wrong, but I think that ultimately is what led this the drive for this change.
Yeah, I think we saw this already a few different times. First of all, we know that at Augusta, they don't allow it. There's no green reading books. There's no stimp meters. They never tell you what the greens are running at Augusta National. They're pretty secretive like that. They kind of are like, nah, they're championship speed. Don't worry about it. And so there's none of that like preliminary work that gets done by these players. They show up and they got to read these greens and figure it out themselves. And also we saw this on the LPGA Tour this year where they didn't get the books ready in time for the Kia Classic, so there was no books, or not the Kia Classic, the Lotte Championship in Hawaii, and their rounds were 15 minutes faster. Like without green reading books, they were like, well, what's the difference between last week and this week? Well, no green reading books, and we were 15 minutes faster a group by the average. It's pretty impressive. And if you can pick up 15 minutes on the tour next year, by all means do that. I am 100% in on that. I read Danielle Kang today talking about that, how she's like, I'm all for the elimination of green reading books. I'm for the elimination of rangefinders. I'm for the elimination of putting with the pin in. I want all that stuff gone. I want to go back to it being just old school stuff, and that's me 100%. So you're starting to see some players pushing back on some of these changes that they thought were going to speed things up, and they didn't. Now it's interesting that the players, though, like in baseball, it takes an act of God to get something past the Players Association, and in golf, the players are the ones driving the change.
Yeah, you're really seeing that in all sports. Like you mentioned, it's, all sports football's always done a really good job of having a 3-hour product. And I think they're okay with 3 hours. I don't think anyone's clamoring for it to be shorter. There's been a little bit of discussion around length of video review, but, baseball certainly finally is taking steps to make the game shorter. And golf is just following suit. I think that obviously viewership is going to drive everything, and fans don't want to sit around for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours. But from golf's perspective, I think this was mostly driven by the players as opposed to baseball and football and basketball being fans are just upset with the lengthy video reviews.
Yeah, players don't like 5-hour rounds of golf. Because listen, you and I are big pace of play guys, right? I can't stand it when the round goes over 4 hours, 10 minutes. Like, if we're out there longer than 4:10, 4:15, I get a little antsy in the pantsy. I'm not a huge fan of hanging out there for 4.5, 5 hours. And the fact that these players are routinely out there 5+ hours under 90-degree heat, 100-degree heat, in pants, I mean, that's a hard no, for me if you told me that.
Yeah, and I think a purist is going to say that, well, what's 15 minutes? But when you talk about the collection of an entire season and how these guys wear down, not just from a golf perspective, but baseball and all other sports included, 15 minutes on a daily basis is a really big deal. It really is. And it's a big deal to, baseball's finding that out with moving up. The Twins have experimented with moving up game times to 6:40 instead of 7:10. That half an hour makes a big difference for the fan experience. And I think even more from the player experience, not the change of time, but golf limiting, or eliminating that extra 15 minutes of a round, I think will have a big effect on the golfers. And I think ultimately you'll see better golf in the long run.
I think so too, right? I believe it will only improve the product. Like, I think it'll only make guys, if you're playing ready golf, like, this when you and I go out and play. We don't play enough together. We need to do that. But when we're just out there and you're just kind of playing ready golf and it isn't about who's got the honor and who's got all this stuff, it seems like you play better golf. I don't know. When you're in a rhythm, you're in a routine. I mean, what throws the routine off faster than watching a bunch of yokels in front of you, rinsing balls into the lake and fishing for balls out of the marsh? I mean, that drives you insane.
Yeah, anytime I see a group of players sitting on the benches and talking and that there's a lengthy delay on a tee, my mind immediately goes to how are they going to hit their next shot? Because I know from experience it's difficult to hit that next shot when you've lost your focus and you're sitting there just thinking about other things, getting frustrated, thinking about the fact that you have a life after your golf round. I just think that's going to have a big difference. That's going to be the main difference. It's not the extra 15 minutes. It's the lack of the 3 or 4 minute waits on every tee shot.
Totally agree. I'm interested to keep an eye on that. I want to see how that plays itself out. I want to ask you about this because I played the Royal Golf Club in Stillwater, Lake Elmo area. I think you've played it. Yes, you've played. You've played some holes there. Yep. I will come out and tell you, as if this is a local Minnesota pod, I know people who listen. If you want to challenge yourself on the greens as a putter and as a chipper of the ball, I think that's the place to go. Like, that place for a public track, although I'm going to make my complaints about it here in a minute, but for around the greens, I haven't played a lot harder than that. That was pretty tough stuff. What did you think when you played it?
I really liked the Royal Golf Club. I thought that, I thought that the clubhouse was beautiful, and it was, they treat you really well at courses like that where you're paying a few extra bucks. I thought that the course was, for being difficult, challenging, every hole kind of seemed to have its own quirks. I thought that it was very playable, and to me that's my favorite kind of course, where it's challenging, but it's also playable. I think that some courses can kind of trying to make the course challenging and the trees in the way and the rough thick. I think they can get away from themselves a little bit to say, okay, even if I am on my game, I should be rewarded. And I'm a little bit biased because I think a lot of the fairways run together and they slope back to the fairway, so it allows me to be able to bomb the ball a little more.
Yeah, for sure.
So and maybe it's just a result of playing well there, but I really enjoyed the course. Like I said, challenging but very playable, and I played well there. and I'd love to go back.
Yeah, I think so too. I'd love to play another round there with you. We should go out there and play it. But here's my complaint, and I got to get all the golf courses on board with this. If I could change one thing about high-end golf, and most places already do this, but I want to make it a uniformed thing. If I'm going to pay $90, $100, $150, $200, I don't want to pay for range balls on top of that. The range balls got to be free.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The range balls have to be free. The fact that you're going to charge $90 and then you're going to make somebody pay $8 more for a bucket of balls is absolutely outrageous. Outrageous. Yep. And first of all, I don't even understand how at the local munis when you're paying $30, $40, you don't get a 15 ball warm-up bucket. Like, you should just get that. If I ran a golf course, I would give that to my paying customers. Like, if you're if you just are showing up for the range, fine, pay for the range. But if you're a paying customer and you have put the money into my golf course, you can hit some balls, my friend. Enjoy your experience. And at every other place, it's not hurting the high-end courses. Because if you go to that's what tells me the difference between, like, an elite high-end course and just a good course, right? Because you go down to Paiute in Vegas, you go to Buffalo Ridge in Branson, you go play the Wilderness at Fortune Bay, you ain't paying for balls. Like, you're hitting balls. You're hitting a pyramid of balls on the house. That's how it should be. And the fact that's the one knock on this golf course is that they just are like, nah, you got to pay extra for the balls. Full stop, no. Like, I should get balls for free anytime I'm paying over. I think you should get it anytime, but definitely if I pay over $75 for a round of golf, I need free balls. That's my rule.
Yep, I'm with you on the line. And a number of courses, like you were mentioning, a couple are on board with that. Giants Ridge is the same way.
Yep.
The men's course at the Classics the same way.
Yep.
When I went down and played the Legends at the casino, that was the same way. So I totally agree. I think there's a little bit of tradition with, is it the head pro or someone has a cut of proceeds from the range. I don't know exactly who it is, but it's traditionally that way. But you can avoid that. I mean, I don't care whether I hit the balls or not. Charge me an extra $4. Tell me the range balls are free. It's not that hard, and I totally agree. If you're showing up to practice, then absolutely, because people will abuse that. But I don't see how you would abuse it from the perspective if you're paying $75 and you have a receipt showing I get my, like you said, you don't need 80 balls. You don't need to be there 2 hours early, but give me 15 balls to warm up. If not, I'm going to take a couple extra breakfast balls and I'm going to slow up your course. So I guess you get the choice.
Well, that's just it. Like, it took me 2-3 holes because I said I'm not doing that. On principle, I'm not paying extra for balls. Like, I'm just not. On principle alone. I will go sit on your nice practice green. I will go sit on your nice practice chipping area, and I will work there and kind of warm up that way. But it took me 2 solid holes to really kind of feel like myself. And then after that, I kind of got going, and I hit the ball really well. But I'm just thinking, man, I could maybe get off to a better start if you just gave me the range balls at the front end. And everybody's like, well, stop being cheap. No, you stop being cheap. Like, the golf course is being cheap. I'm not being cheap. You're being cheap. To me, this is, again, if you're a $30 municipal course, you should give free balls to somebody who's paid the money. Because that only adds to the experience. And if people have a good experience and they play well at your golf course, they will tell people and they will come back.
Yeah, I think it's a little that goes a long way. And I mean, who knows if it would translate, but there could be something to getting someone there half hour early to buy a hot dog or to buy another beer. I don't know. There's ways to make up money, and I know the longer you're on property, the better chance you're going to spend money there. And I just can't imagine the $8 on range balls is taking the course too far. I'm totally with you on that.
I'm glad we agree on this.
We need to start a revolution.
We do.
Yeah, we need to start a revolution.
I
What's our
demand
hashtag?
it. Listen, my listeners of this podcast, unite. Unite behind me on this one. We've got folks in 5 or 6 or 7 different states who actively listen to this pod every week. Get behind me on this one. Operation, we're not paying for range balls and a round of golf at the same time. I mean, it's absurd to me. Absurd. Absurd. Sorry. I mean, I'm
we'll
more
work
willing
on
to.
that. That's a long hashtag. We'll work on that.
Yeah, I'll pay the. I mean, I'm more willing to at least pay the $5 when I'm only paying 35, 40 for the round. Fine, $5 extra for. I'll do that. I mean, you're gonna sucker me in, but like I said, anything over 65, 70, I'm out. I'm out. I demand the balls. I demand it.
Yep.
Thank you. Lot was made, Ty, over the U.S. Open golf course, Torrey Pines, saying that it kind of eliminated a bunch of dudes, including maybe our guy Troy Merritt, who, by the way, did make the cut. And by the way, big news on the Merritt front. We'll get into that in just a second. But we've got this venue that seems like everybody's like, well, it identified the best players. All the best players were on the leaderboard. And it's like, well, it identified the skill set that we've identified with the best players in the world, the ability to hit it long and dig it up out of rough and all that stuff. But does that make for a great U.S. Open venue, I ask? And if so, what would make a good U.S. Open venue? What do you want to see in your U.S. Open venue courses?
See, that's the tough thing is there's a little bit of a dilemma there in my eyes. So we're talking about what I think of a U.S. Open and then also making it playable to multiple types of players. So when I think of a good U.S. Open, I do think of thick rough and length, right? And that's just right there. I mean, the rough less so, but the length is just going to take a lot of players out of play. The Troy Merritts of the world and Kevin Kisners, they're just not Harold Varner. They're just not going to have a huge, although Harold Varner hits the ball a little bit. I shouldn't put him in that category, but there's a number of players who don't hit the ball very far. I don't know what the percentage is, but I would assume there's probably 40% of the tour that if you length out the course to 7,800 yards, they just aren't going to go into the week feeling like they have much of a chance. And that is unfortunate. But again, that just falls back to the tradition. And maybe I'm not saying that the U.S. Open has to be that way. I'm just saying that's what I think of a U.S. Open course being. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's the rub, because there's a little part of me that, not saying I wanted Richard Bland to be there all 72 holes, because I think we all knew he wasn't going to be there all 72 holes, not on that golf course, that he had caught lightning in a bottle and played 2 phenomenal rounds, but that wasn't going to hold up over 4 days, over 72 holes on that golf course. No chance, right? But when you think of a guy like Troy Merritt, who's a good putter and a solid driver of the golf ball, the fact that he's kind of out of it and he's basically just fighting to make the cut, I don't know if I think that hurts it a little bit. Like, I do want I want guys like, you think about, Payne Stewart would never win a modern U.S. Open. Corey Pavin wouldn't win a modern U.S. Open at the length they're playing at right now. There's no way. And I'm not saying I need to see Corey Pavin win the U.S. Open, but I'm saying I like when different kinds of players are in the mix. I like when we play a golf course that seems to invite skill sets that, certain holes are going to play well to certain guys, play against certain guys, that sort of thing, but not the entirety of the golf course. So I'm cool with some long holes, but I like some short holes. I like holes where you got to chip it around the greens. I like holes where you got to, maybe you got to be a good bunker player, that sort of thing. I just didn't think we had enough variety this past weekend, and I'd like to see more of that.
Yeah, you're kind of pigeonholed a little bit with Torrey Pines being that, where what the property's built on. You don't really have the ability to change holes or stretch it out or shorten it up a whole lot. You're kind of stuck with what you got. And Torrey Pines, I think that there's a lot of money to be made out west. The venue's good. Obviously, San Diego is a desirable place for players and fans to spend a few days. And I think that there's a little bit of that. But yeah, I wouldn't be, if I found out that Torrey Pines was out of the mix for the next 100 years, I don't think I would lose any sleep over it.
And so that's, to me, when I go back to this, because when I played Royal the other day, I thought the defense was not off the tee at all. I thought it was very fair, like a very fair driving course. Yep. But where the course made its money and made you really have to work was around the greens, because they shaved all the areas and they pitched all the greens up, and everything that landed short ran off. I hit a shot on the 9th hole. It was a par 5. I had a 55-yard pitch shot. and I hit what I thought was a great shot. I thought it was a perfect shot, and it landed, and with maybe 1/2 yard more, it would have cozied up to the hole, I think. But it lands that 1/2 yard short, and it rolls all the way back down to the bottom of the hill, and I'm still with a 30-some yard pitch shot for the next one. And I'm thinking to myself, that's the true test of golf, right there. Who can drive it down there? And then who's got the skills from 50 yards to hit wedge shots like that and get it close? I think that's always what separates people at Augusta, because Augusta has a lot of that. And I think that's what makes the Masters so interesting, and really why so many different guys get in the mix at that course, and maybe why we don't see that at the U.S. Open. I don't know. It's just a thought, right?
Yeah, and it's strategy as much as skill in that situation. That's what I'd like to see. That's another thing I think of when I think of the U.S. Open is strategy. It's and that's really any golf course or any tournament, but it should not just be, I have to hit the perfect wedge shot to be able to land it. I mean, the average person can't play that way, and the pros can't from a overwhelmingly large perspective. I know I can't be short here because the ball's going to be by my feet. If I'm going to be anywhere, it's going to be beyond the hole. Or I know that the left side of the screen is no good. I know I have to leave myself an uphill putt on this hole, because a downhill putt, I could putt it off the front of the green. It's things like that I think that they need to keep in mind. I think they get a little bit of tunnel vision when it comes to the U.S. Open. And again, I was talking about this as a positive earlier, but in ways it can be a bad thing. Is they don't think they have to worry about a whole lot else other than length and growth of the rough. I don't think that they spend as much time thinking about the golf course and the layout and, hey, if we move the tee over here, or if we stretch this hole out, or if we shorten this hole. That's a common misconception, is you can make a hole more difficult and certainly much more entertaining by shortening it up. And I think that that's something that we might lose a little bit, because every course, every greenskeeper, every tournament director wants to kind of flex their muscle and show how long they can make the golf course.
See, but I think that's what's the beauty of a course like Riviera, because they have that 10th hole, which is a drivable 4, and it just gives guys fits. That course, that hole, people are lucky to make 4 on that, and it's not that hard. It's 305. Well, I mean, it's not that hard, but I mean, it's not long. It's 305, 310, and guys are having a hard time making 4 there. There's ways to do this, but how do they do it? They do it with complex greens, with tough pitch shots, by challenging players to hit perfect shots at the perfect time. And I just want to see a little more of that incorporated into the U.S. Open. And they will with some of these venues coming up. I want to see what they do at LA Country Club and what they do at the Country Club itself in Brookline next year. I think it could be a really interesting thing. I can't wait to see that. All right, let's get to our big news.
Yeah, and last thing on this.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say one example of that popped in my head was TPC Harding Park. It was either the 12th or 13th hole, and it's not just because of the shot that Colin Morikawa hit. That was my favorite hole to watch all week, because there was a ton of strategy about, do I go for it? Do I not? That was my favorite hole, and that's tough to do at a major when it's not a closing hole. Make a hole that people remember, and there needs to be more than that. And we didn't have that. There's no hole looking back at the U.S. Open this past week that came off as overly memorable. Again, not even 18, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, what's memorable was the putts by Rahm, not necessarily the holes themselves, which is the exact opposite of things like Augusta and even Kiowa. There are 2 or 3 holes I left Kiowa going damn, I don't want any part of that par 3 17th. I don't want any part of a couple of those long par 5s. Those were brutally difficult. And I think, obviously, we say the same thing at Augusta. We have the same, amen corner in 16, and we love those. We love those holes. And 15, the par 5, is amazing. So we always talk about that stuff as well. All right, we got to get a little tease out here. Obviously, as you know, the resident player on our podcast is Troy Merritt. We root for Troy. He's inside the top 100 on the FedEx Cup right now. We're rooting for Troy because he's a local guy. I know that they say every time he's on the tour that he's from Boise, Idaho, or whatever, because that's where he kind of went to school and that's where he lives. But he's an old Panther, old Spring Lake Park Panther at heart, and Ty Schrupp knows that very well because he is also a fellow Panther and knows the Merritt family quite well. And we're going to have a guest next week. It's going to be fun, hopefully, if it all works out, all the logistics work out.
Yep. Do you want to tease who it is?
We should tease it. It's the former caddy and brother of Troy Merritt. Tim Merritt's on here. So we're going to maybe talk about PGA Tour caddy life with our guy Tim Merritt. And obviously we'll get into some Troy stuff, and then Ty and I will basically try to hawk around at TPC or at Hazeltine and try to see if we can get Troy to do that for us. And obviously it's really all about us, Ty. I mean, that's really what it is. Yes, we want Tim to come on and talk about caddy life and PGA Tour life, but we really just want to get on Hazeltine and TPC, Twin Cities.
No denying on my end. If you have questions, Tim, what's the email?
Well, if you have questions that you want to send in about caddy life or questions about tour life, any of that stuff, you can send that to timpodcast1@yahoo.com. Timpodcast1@yahoo.com. You can also send us a tweet at Tim Anderson Pod. Tim Anderson Pod on Twitter. You can also drop us a hit on my Instagram. You can send me a little message at Mr. Tim Anderson. All three of those areas are going to be satisfactory. There's also our Facebook page, facebook.com/Tim Podcast. If you go find it, you can get the links to all of our previous episodes, and also anywhere where we get our podcast, you can go subscribe to it, all of that jazz. I'm going to check everything. So as soon as we get stuff, let us know. You can also comment right on the Podbean page, which is, again, timpodcast.podbean.com. I think it's timpodcast1.pod. No, it's timpodcast.podbean.com. Go check that right there and take care of it. But all of those places are good to send questions in, and obviously questions for us as well. Ty and I are so plugged in on golf. What can we say? We'll answer anything, anytime, anywhere. That's our thought. No questions are off limits, by the way, Ty, right? You'll answer any question.
Nope.
No matter the appropriateness, you will answer any and all questions, and we will read any and all emails here on this podcast. That is our rule.
Yep.
Let me shout out the women's KPMG LPG, or the PGA Championship. Women's PGA is this week at Atlanta Athletic Club. Big major for them. They just played a major like 3 weeks ago, but they're back at it, Ty. They're back at it at Atlanta Athletic Club. It sounds like it's very hot and very stormy and very humid down there. Yep, I love it. Golf in Atlanta in June. Great idea. I think it's just a terrific place to have it. It is a beautiful golf course, but good God, it's going to be a warm one down there.
Yeah, it's a course that a lot of the reading I've done, the girls are really excited about. It's Atlanta Athletic Club, as you mentioned, and a course with a lot of history. It's just Atlanta kind of is an underrated golf scene. Right? A lot of golf's history comes from that area. So a lot of intriguing courses in that area. Obviously, the tour stops there come playoff time. But, not a place that hosts a ton of majors, obviously outside of Augusta. But, yeah, it's nice to see Atlanta representing after disappointedly losing the NBA or MLB All-Star game.
I'd like to see them.
Shout out Atlanta.
I'd like to see them jump on the KPMG. I love this tournament, by the way. I think they've done a great job with this. It's been at some great venues, too, over the last handful of years. It's been at Hazeltine. It's going to be here now at Atlanta Athletic Club. It's going to Sabonic or Aronimink in the next couple of years. Like, they're playing, like, some really legit golf courses for this tournament, which is fantastic. I'd like to see them get a little rota going, too, where they can maybe bring in some of these courses that the U.S. Like, I'd love to see them play Marion. I think it would be awesome to play Marion for the U.S. Women's Open or for the KPMG. I think all of that would be fantastic. I'd love to see them play some more of these high-end venues that were used to host men's majors that don't host men's majors anymore. I'd love to see them get back out at some of these venues.
Right. I was digging, not to get too deep in the weeds, I was digging out or cleaning out my childhood closet. My dad's selling this house. So if anyone's looking for a house on the Mississippi River in Coon Rapids, give me a call. Oh, my
God, dude, I love that house.
I know.
It was like my favorite house I ever walked into in my life.
It is being sold, and I was cleaning out my closet. It's a big one. So I was cleaning out my closet, and I found my old pass from volunteering at the Ladies U.S. Open when it was at Interlochen, I believe in 2008.
Yeah, I think, is that the Hillary Lunke? Is that the one where she kind of the upstart, the upset, the shocker that came out of nowhere? She hasn't won anything since, but showed up and was like 1,000,000-to-1 odds and won the tournament. I think that's her, isn't it?
I'm not sure. I don't remember.
I'm gonna have to look it up.
I do not recall.
I'll do that while you're checking. So good to know that you did that. You don't think I can afford that house, though, right? That's out of my price range, I think. Right?
I don't know. We were having that discussion. I think that on a teacher's salary, I think you guys are paid pretty well. So you never know.
Who is feeding you that nonsense? Oh, my goodness. You got to go talk to somebody. That's terrible.
No. I don't feel that way. Teachers are underpaid. Absolutely. Shout out teachers. Thank you for all you do. You guys are...
Actually, 19-year-old Inbee Park won it in 2008.
Oh, that's a big deal.
Yeah, look at that. Lunky must have won it a few years prior to that because they've also done the Solheim Cup there and everything. Like they've played a lot of big women's tournaments at Interlaken. It's great field.
See, I was the first person to know about Inbee Park because I was there.
Yeah, you were there early.
Yep,
you were in on that.
I told everyone.
You did. You said everybody. This girl with the 4-mile-an-hour golf swing that's steep and upright is going to blow everybody's doors off for the next 11 years on the LPGA. Here she is. Would you pay, just, before we start talking about Travelers Championship, one 10-foot putt for your life, one 10-foot putt, who's putting it? For me, it's Inbee Park.
See, I don't know enough about the gals.
Maybe
that's
Tiger.
A good question.
Maybe Tiger. Tiger would be close because Tiger, I feel like
Tiger's had some big 10-foot putts.
I feel like Tiger made every 10-foot putt that he had to have for about 15 years.
Yeah.
And then he hasn't made a lot of them since, but for like 10 to 15 years, he made every single one.
Yeah. That's a tough one. We're going to have to talk about that next week. This is an important question. I think I need a good answer for it.
We'll have to stuff that one then. We'll save that. That'll be good.
I can tell you who it's not going to be. It's not going to be Phil Mickelson. It's not going to be Will Zalatoris. It's certainly not going to be Webb Simpson. It's not going to be anyone who left arm locks. I just think that's cheating. So.
Oh, by the way, it's 100% cheating. Did I tell you that I did try out my first arm lock putter? Did Ty freeze again? Oh, it's so dramatic. He's so dramatic, this Ty. Oh, goodness gracious. We'll see what happens when he gets back in. But I will tell you this story because I know you want to hear it. Are you back, Ty? There he is. He's back now. I think he's with us again. Ty, I tried an arm lock putter. What do you think?
It's cheating. I mean,
100%.
And honestly, I've changed my mind a little. I've kind of gone back and forth on this a little bit, but it really is. I just don't see the difference between anchoring to your body and anchoring to your arm. In fact, I think that if the information would have been there and the trend would have been to anchor to your arm, I think people would have chosen to anchor to their arm instead of their chest. I don't think that there's really any distinction between the two.
So I took this arm lock putter. It was at second swing, and I went over to the putting green, and I had 6 balls, and I dropped them about 10 feet from this fast carpet green. Now, again, not a ton of break there, but whatever. You're not trying to make a ton of putts there. You're just trying to find a feel and try putters and whatever. So I do this arm lock thing. I make all 6 from 10 feet. Like, I drained all of them because there is no wrist movement and there's nothing to it. It's just straight back, straight through. And if you got a relatively straight putt, you'll make them. I just think and Max Homa kind of said this right at the end of the week. He had a tweet about this. I think he said, like, it doesn't make a great putter incredible, but it does make a bad putter good, and that's a problem.
Yep. I think that pretty much sums up my feeling on it. And that was kind of where I went back and forth. I kind of thought that, hey, I just haven't seen the proof that it makes it unfair as far as it doesn't make the people who arm lock versus the people who don't are not statistically miles better than the ones who don't. But it does make a bad putter. That's a great way to put it, and I couldn't have put it any better myself. It makes a bad putter pretty darn good.
By the way, as we move on to the Travelers Championship, and everybody, if you want to try if you're an arm locker, tell us wrong. Prove me wrong. Come on, join in. Again, we read any and all emails on the air here. If you think the arm lock is great, like Webb Simpson, W. Simpson is going to email us saying, dude, what the hell you trying to do to me? I just figured out how to putt again and win on tour, and now you want to take that away from me too. Screw you guys. Thank you, W. Simpson, for that email. By the way, just to let you know, my picks this week for the LPGA, Nelly Korda, Danielle Kang, Arya Jitanagarn, So-Yun Ryu, Stephanie Meadow, and Aditi Ashok. I'm taking them this week. I think there's no way my DraftKings team does not win this week. There's no way. No way. By the way, shout out to that particular daily fantasy site. They're the only ones that offer the LPGA. Come on, everybody. Get on board. Offer me some stuff. I want to bet on more things. I am red hot, Ty. Let's talk Travelers Championship. I continue to cash week after week. It's just a happening thing. But I actually love this tournament, the Travelers Championship at TPC River Highlands. It feels like a fair golf course, like one of the fairest golf courses they play on tour every year. I love this place.
Yeah, I really like this tournament, which it's a little bit unfortunate because it's following a major, and I just know a lot of these guys kind of plan their seasons around majors, so I don't think they like to play golf, and travel so immediately post major. But this is a good enough tournament at a good enough course that it does command a really nice field. So I'm a big fan of the Travelers, and I'll be watching. And I feel pretty good about my team. I am not red hot. Yeah. I have not been in the money in about 4 or 5 weeks, but this is the week.
Time to turn it around. Yeah, it is a great field, as you mentioned. Bryson DeChambeau's here. Dustin's here. Koepka's here, which anytime you get those two guys in the room, that's going to be some headlines. And Koepka certainly made some more headlines, which, I don't know, did you read this? That he's like, well, we talked about it a few years ago, and he went back on his word on something, and that's the problem. So apparently, according to Koepka, they came to some kind of agreement, and DeChambeau went back on the agreement, and that's why the feud is blown up again. Like, what the hell? These two girls need to settle this thing as soon as possible.
Yeah, and he made mention that he thinks it's fractured beyond repair, which I don't buy. I mean, typically things can be settled over one meal or one 10-minute conversation, and I think that's probably the case here. But I think that there's enough in between the two, and golf is an easy sport, I think, and we can find this out next week. I think it's pretty easy to keep your distance, and who knows?
These guys need to end up in the together. They have to.
It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see if they can keep up the feud. It's one thing if they don't like each other and it's not in front of us, every tournament. But right now it is, and I don't think they can keep that up. So something's got to give there.
We need a weekend tee time for both of these two guys. Period. Like, these two guys need to be in a group playing together, heads up, no questions asked. This has to happen. Go ahead.
They won't do it, but what if the next match? I mean, Bryson's already kind of wet his beak on the match. What if the next match can get these two together? They're talking about it.
Oh, I'm sure. As soon as this one's over, it'll be a made-for-TV showdown thing, and I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I want to see it.
Me too.
Other guys in the field this week. Like I said, this is a great field. Patrick Cantlay's in the field. Patrick Reed's in the field. Paul Casey, Scotty Scheffler, Tony Finau, Brian Harmon, Abe Answer, your guy Joaquin Niemann, Matt Wolff back in the field. So it's good to see Matt Wolff. This is a pretty top-heavy. Bubba Watson, a lot of guys. This is a pretty good field. Really good. For a week
after.
It's
just one of those. It's a course that I think a lot of guys like. Contrary to what we discussed earlier, I think it's a course that gives a lot of guys a chance, and it's an area of the country I think these guys like to be. So I'll be watching, as I mentioned before, not just because of the field, but because of the course and because of the Travelers Championship. There's a little bit of history there.
Next year, mark my words, when they play at the Country Club in Brookline, Mass., this field might be the best regular season tour stop, other than maybe the Memorial or something like that. This field will be loaded next year. Because all of these guys will play, but Rory's played there in the last few years. Spieth has played there a bunch. He's won there. I wouldn't be surprised for a short drive they would come play this tournament. I really believe this will be a packed tournament next year.
Yep. Like I said, we'll find out next week, but I think that drives a lot of what brings golfers. Is I think they do try to limit travel as much as possible, as anyone would want to.
I think you're right, 100%. All right, let's get to our picks then. We do love this golf tournament. We absolutely do. So we're going to be glued to this one this weekend. But I've got a solid little squad here. I'm feeling really good about what I got, and I'm interested to see what you think. So as always, though, my friend, because you are my friend, and we're pals, I'm going to let you have the first. I'm going to let you have the first shot.
Well, I feel pretty good about my team because our subconscious mind is so powerful, and you were reading about this loaded field, and I for a second there I thought that my picks were leaked, and you were reading my team. So spoiler alert, I went with Matthew Wolff as my first pick. I think he has as much to prove as anyone this week, right? I think these guys, as I mentioned before, gear up for majors, but he has major championship type stuff to prove this week, to prove, hey, last week wasn't a fluke and I'm back. And like I said, I just think it's all on the line, and we'll see. He's either going to boom or bust. I don't see a whole lot in between, and I want him on my team.
Fans, I think, really fuel him. I think he really likes that. And I think having fans back makes a huge difference to him. I expect him to play. I expect him to play better. I don't know if he's going to win here in the next month, but he's got some favorable venues. You know, he's won at the 3M. I expect him to play the 3M. I think these are good places for him with good vibes, with people there. I think he's gonna feed off of that. I wouldn't be surprised if he plays well. All right, my number one guy this week. I jumped on Scotty Scheffler at 11,400. I have the feeling that this is the week. I think he's knocked on the door a few times. He's been around. I think it's high time. Not saying there's urgency to win here, but you just feel like, kind of like Colin Morikawa, like he broke through a couple years ago, and you were just like, that's it, floodgates are open, here we go. I think we're getting there with Scotty Scheffler, and I just think it's a matter of time, and I think this might be the week. I'm going to take Scotty Scheffler.
Yeah, I'm becoming further and further out of love with Scotty Scheffler as the weeks go by. But he did have a good showing this past week, and he's a legitimate player. I'm not a huge fan of his swing. I just don't like the sudden movements, and it just feels choppy to me. But he's a good player, and certainly is a caliber player that could win with a field like this.
And that is the concern, right? The concern is can a golf swing that's a little weird hold up under major pressure or under tough pressure on a Sunday? Like we talked about this with Lexi Thompson a couple weeks ago, that impact position can't be repeatable. There's just under major pressure on a Sunday, can that hold up consistently? And we don't think so. Same kind of thing with Scotty Scheffler. You just wonder about that sometimes. But I'm gonna buy it. I'm gonna buy it and see how it goes. Who's your second pick?
Okay. Second pick, I didn't want to upset our guest next week. I want to make sure he shows up at the given time that we've set aside, and so I went with Troy Merritt. Speaking of people who have something to play for, this is the type of player who has a ton to play for at this time of year. These are guys that are really dialed in to every tournament they're at, because points are so important, not only for money, not only for legacy, but tour status, right? This is their job to show up at weeks like this and play well. And I think certain guys show up hoping to play well, but Troy Merritt has the game to play well, so he'll be dialed in, and I thought it was a good value pick.
This is a good venue for Troy because, like last year, DJ won this tournament, but Brendan Todd was going blow for blow with him down the stretch. So you have this really long hitter in DJ, and then you got a short hitter in Brendan Todd, who's really just a good putter and kind of a plotter. So Troy is kind of in between. I don't think he's short. He's not long. He's just not. But I mean, he's a little more of a plotter. Needs to make putts. Needs to hit irons well. But I think this course plays okay for that. I do. So that's why I say I don't think it favors anybody. I'd like to see Merritt play well this week because he's 98th, 99th in FedEx Cup. One more made cut. One more top 20 might be all it takes to secure the card for the year if it's not already secured. But I think one more would get it done for sure.
Is Brendan Todd, is that Shankopotamus?
That is Shankopotamus, yes.
That's Shankopotamus.
Okay. Shankopotamus.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yep.
All right.
He like me, like my stepdad, had battled the Shanks in a big way. It's good to see he's kind of getting over that. Second pick, I took another guy with a goofy ass golf swing, but he's won here, and he's won here like two or three times. I'm gonna take, and a guy he's actually playing pretty well. He's made 11 of 15 cuts. Bubba Watson. I just think, I wonder if like Bubba. First of all, Bubba's been a really entertaining listen for the last couple of weeks. Like he's really been open about his kind of inner demons. Like he's really battled some anxiety stuff, and I think it's really starting to affect him. And I think he masked it for a long time with anger and stuff, but now I think he's trying to like just be open with it and have a little more fun. And I mean, I think it's leading to some better golf. I do. Like he's starting to really play the way that he kind of always used to, and this is a great golf course for him because he can kind of be an artist. He doesn't have to hit a fade here, a draw here. He can work a ball any way he wants off the tee, and I think he likes those kinds of courses.
So our viewership or listenership may quadruple next week after I drop this knowledge bomb on everyone. But, if there's anyone, getting prowess aside, Tiger and Phil and all of those guys, of course we'd want to walk with and follow for a round. I am pretty sure that our guest next week has walked with Bubba Watson.
Oh, yeah.
So I would love to know what it's like to watch Bubba walk around a golf course and listen to, kind of some of his idiosyncrasies. And he's just, there's no one who's more quirky and probably plots out a golf course any differently than Bubba Watson. I'm not talking about angles. I'm just talking about he doesn't subscribe to anything that's traditional, really nothing traditional. You'll find in Bubba's game. So again, next week we'll have to find out what it's like to walk with Bubba Watson.
I like Bubba because he plays quick. Like he's a pace of play guy. Bubba could play a round of golf by himself in 2 hours or an hour 45 or something like that. Like he's not a guy that likes to dawdle. Like he likes to get after it and go, which I totally respect. He's also he's not a swing coach guy. He's not a physio guy. He doesn't have 9 guys with him. Like it's just him and his wife and his caddy, and that's about it. Right, and the kids, and that's about it. And there's something I like about that. I like kind of that simple, let's take all the nonsense out of it, and he's a true artist, and there's something really fun about that. So I got Bubba this week. Who's your third?
So I went with someone who has just been absolutely terrible this year. I'm just going to go off the map for this one. No one's been worse than this guy, but why not this week? Chesson Hadley.
Chesson was... he was right there after 20-some holes at the U.S. Open. Or actually, no, 2 weeks ago. Like, he played well at 2 weeks. He played well at Congaree. Should have won at Congaree. It's really a disaster that he didn't win at Congaree. But I feel like he's playing better. Like, I feel like he's back to striking the ball the way he used to. Like, he came out and he won on tour right away, and everybody thought, like, he's got charisma, he's got game, and all that. And it just sort of faded and went away, and it seems like it's slowly starting to come back. I don't hate that pick, Chesson Hadley. I don't hate it. I didn't take him, but I don't hate it. I'm going to take a guy who missed the cut, so he had time to get out of town last week and get up there. And again, week after majors, you don't want to take the guys who were in the mix, like deep into the mix, because that's a lot, right? So you take guys that are playing well on the whole, but maybe didn't have a great week last week, so that you're betting that they're coming back on the upswing this time around. I'm going to take Max Homa, 9,400. He's been a little feast or famine. He's made 12 of 20 cuts, but he has a win. He's got a couple of top 3 4s. This also feels like a Max Homa golf course and a Max Homa type tournament. I expect him to be in the mix this week.
See, you and I are going to be millionaires, right? Strategery when it comes to daily fantasy picks. Picking a guy who's had a couple days off, probably is, had a couple, phone calls to the old swing coach. I don't see how we don't make our millions. There's just no way. There's no way.
Got to make it at some point. Point. Yeah, I've made $45 the last 2 weeks. That's pretty close to $1 million, right?
That's pretty good.
It's pretty close.
I'll take that.
Yeah. So let's go Max Homa. So I like what I got. I got an eclectic group of personalities so far is where I'm kind of going with mine this week. Where are you going?
There you go. So I went with my highest money player with my fourth pick. I went with Patrick Reed. If I could be mistaken, I think he plays well here, and just kind of a guy you can count on most weeks to show up and always has a chance to win.
Yeah, another guy that you love in a tournament like this because he didn't necessarily play great in the major last week. So you bet him in this spot because he's going to come in a little bit more freed up, not as tired. A venue that he does like. I think he does play well here. So there is some past history. There's good karma. Probably plenty of room for him to fluff a lie or two. So he's in great shape here to have a good week.
Right.
How dare I? I'm going to get in trouble with his wife. All right. I'm going to take my fourth guy, a guy who has found a lot of power in the offseason. I'm going to take Cameron Tringali, $9,000, 15 out of 20 cuts made this year. He is hitting it a mile. He is really hitting it off the tee, and he's playing pretty solidly last couple weeks. Played well at the Charles Schwab, played well at the Memorial. All I need is a made cut here, Cameron.
Yeah, I don't know. Do they give out a most improved award every year? Because Cameron Tringali certainly would be in that mix, right? It's a guy who you knew a little bit of him. He's South African. He's tall, he's lanky, hits the ball a little bit, but not a guy that you saw on top of leaderboards a whole lot. And this year, it seems like every time you look, every time he's playing, he seems to be in the mix. I don't think he's won this year, but certainly this could be the week. And when we're talking about daily fantasy, making cuts is a big deal. So probably a guy who's going to be playing on Saturday and Sunday.
Just give me 4 rounds, Cameron Tringali. That's all I ask. 4 rounds. All right, fifth pick.
All right, fifth pick for me. Steady as anyone this year. I think he's playing really well as anyone. He's made 12 of 14 cuts. I went with Paul Casey, another guy, horses for courses. I do think he plays well here.
Yeah.
And coming off playing well at the U.S. Open, but maybe not a guy who had to grind too much on Sunday.
Casey, I just feel like is the steadiest Eddie on the PGA Tour. And that being said, I never want him to win because it's just not interesting when Paul Casey wins. Paul Casey's a really good player that does absolutely nothing for me. He's a great player, really great player. But he's got more charisma than Justin Rose. I don't know why I'd rather watch Justin Rose than Paul Casey, but I don't know what it is about Paul Casey's kind of robotic golf game that bores the hell out of me. I have a tough time staying awake for Paul Casey tournaments. But he is a steady Eddie.
I don't feel the same way. I like Paul Casey. I wouldn't put him in Justin Rose's category.
Yeah, Justin Rose is plenty boring too. I'm not trying to say anything about that, but and he's not playing well. Boy, did Justin Rose not play well last week at the U.S. Open. Wow. Well, one thing I did nail, Tyler Strafacci didn't break 75. Problem is, neither did Justin Rose. I don't think he broke 76. That was a tough scene.
Yeah, we didn't get everything right, but we did call the Tyler Strafacci deal.
Yeah, he's
no chance.
No chance. Guy's got no shot. No shot. My fifth pick, I had a little money, so we went big. I'm taking the no laying up guys refer to as Treadstone. I'm taking the Jason Bourne of the PGA Tour, Patrick Cantlay. Very concerned here. I love Patrick Cantlay, and he was my pick to win the U.S. Open last week, and it looked good. It looked really good for a little while there, and then he kind of faded away. The putter is just not good. He's just not putting with any confidence on the greens right now. It's bad. Bad.
Yeah, I always take a long, hard look at Patrick Cantlay. I think he's probably one of the more underrated players on the PGA Tour, so you tend to be able to get him in these daily fantasy situations for a pretty good deal as long as there's a decent field. He tends to be overlooked. I don't hate the pick at all. I don't know what his history is at Travelers, but yeah, Patrick Cantlay. We talk about these guys that could win. Patrick Cantlay certainly could win at a tournament like this. It would not surprise me.
I think
as long as Jon Rahm is there to drop out on Saturday night.
I think he won. I think he when he was 19, 20, shot 62 in one of the rounds at the Travelers. That was just kind of like his intro to golf. Like, oh, here, by the way, I'm good and I'm here. But his putter is not good right now. Like he looks like he's decelling, and it just doesn't look comfortable on the greens right now.
Maybe he needs to arm lock.
Maybe he needs to arm lock. Maybe he needs to. Maybe. I don't know. Or
I think guys are afraid of committing to that and having it be taken away from them. I think there's a good amount of people that would do it because there's enough of an advantage, but they're afraid that it's going to be taken away from them, and they're going to have to learn how to ride a bicycle again.
They could do what I did. What's working for me lately, Tyus, is I'm gripping down on the putter. Not arm locking, just gripping further down the shaft, maybe a little more bend. Not quite Michelle Wee tabletop yet, but gripping down a little more, feeling a little closer to the ball, feeling like I got a little more control over the face, and I'm starting to roll the rock, man. Starting to make some big putts. No need to arm lock. Get lower.
Yep, just get lower.
Last guy.
That sounds like it would hurt my back. I saw you yawning over there, Tim. It's 10:02 p.m. on a Wednesday.
Yeah, I know.
Let's.
Got summer
Carlos
school
Ortiz is my sixth player.
Carlos Ortiz.
I got Carlos Ortiz this week. Dare I say he might be the best player from Mexico.
He's playing very well. And I think he's
Abraham Answer.
He's starting to pop. He's starting to pop a little more than Abraham Answer is. I agree with you. We're seeing a lot more Carlos Ortiz, I feel, than Abraham Answer. Answer's got the reputation. I feel like Ortiz might be the better player right now. I kind of agree with you. I'm going to take an American with my last pick who's been playing exclusively in Europe, but he has now officially earned his card. He will be playing more in America. Good for him. David Lipsky, who has really been a fine player on the Euro Tour for the last couple of years. He's made 2 out of 2 cuts, taking advantage of the chances he's getting here to play in the United States. He's gone the Brooks Koepka route. He went to Europe. He got his card there. He's grinded it out in some of these tough tournaments in Europe, in these weird places, traveling all over the world. And now his game might be PGA Tour ready, playing against some really strong competition on the Euro Tour. So I'm going to take David Lipsky for $7,900 and hope he makes the cut.
That's beyond my radar. I do know the name David Lipsky, but when I see those names, I just have to know a little bit about them. So that's just where you're a little bit better than me at this.
See, this is where you got to get some depth there, Ty. You got to get to it, my friend.
Yep.
Once you get that loaded in, that European Tour knowledge, then there's no stopping you. That's the way I feel about it.
You are the 2007 Twins. You got a team full of piranhas there.
We just needed to get the pitchers some spider tack back in 2007, and maybe we would have gone to the World Series.
Seriously?
We needed to cheat better. The Twins just don't cheat as well as they should. That's the problem.
Yeah, that Minnesota nice thing.
Gotta bang a trash can or two here. Let's get something done. Come on.
Ooh. Careful, you make my brother-in-law mad.
Uh-oh. Sorry about that. Hope everybody's okay. All right, well, that's the pod for this week. Thank you, everybody. Hey, we went full circle. We started baseball. We finished with baseball. That's the way it works here on the podcast. Once again, thanks for listening in, and go ahead and subscribe, listen, like, comment, share, all that stuff. We would appreciate it if you did wherever you get your podcasts. Send Ty and I a line anytime you feel the need to talk about something golf-related. We're all for it. We have other pods coming up here, of course. I got Zach coming in for some sports potpourri. I'm really trying to get this movie podcast done with Lauren, but man, our schedules have been really hard to make work, so we're going to try to get this thing done. We got to do a couple of those make goods for everybody as well. A lot happening on the pod this summer. We're also going to try at some point to kind of revamp this thing a little bit. We'll get it ready for the football season coming up in August, September. So it's going to be very exciting times around here at the pod. Want to continue to thank you for all of your support as we go forward. So for Ty, this is Tim. Until next time, saying keep your head up, and we'll see you.